Welcome to another episode of Bourbon and Rum. This is a podcast of two brothers from opposite ends of the spectrum. My name's Kent. I'm a rum drinker, and I'm from the left side of the aisle.
And I'm Kyle. I like bourbon, tend to be a little more conservative. Join us as we explore this experiment. Can two brothers from different sides of the political spectrum have a civil conversation and celebrate our differences?
What are you drinking?
I am drinking a pre-made cocktail by Penelope. Penelope is they do rye and bourbon. It's a relatively new brand, but they've got this black walnut old fashioned premix that they make with their rye whiskey, walnut bitters, and vanilla demerara syrup. So yeah, it's pretty tasty.
That sounds great.
A little dangerous. I can't even taste the alcohol.
Well, speaking of that, you had an XO class rum last week. I'm drinking El Pasador del Oro.
Oh,
and this
nice.
is an XO rum from Guatemala.
Oh,
It's 40 proof. It's kind of sweet, but it is like glass. There is just no heat at all to it.
well, and it's like that stuff I was talking about, that Zacapa stuff. I mean, that's like a one-way ticket to alcohol poisoning. I mean, you could drink the whole bottle, not even knowing you're drinking anything.
I mean, I think you'd know. Well, man, I had a good time on our last episode with the guest. It's nice to return to our normal format for this time. Interesting times, I've got to say. You know, we were still very much living in the aftermath and the outcomes of the assassination, and I guess I just want to say again that it has been interesting to see and learn more about Charlie Kirk. All I had about him was the sound bites that you get when you're on a different side, and I'm impressed by the commitment that he showed to free speech. Even if I weren't impressed, an assassination is beneath the dignity of this country, and it's not where we want to be. And I want to give a full-throated, no hesitations condemnation of anything that even looks like that. Yeah, I want it all to stop. But what has been interesting is that a guy who dedicated his life to free speech, been a lot of questions about free speech this week, and we thought maybe that would be a bit of a topic to delve into. What does that mean? We hit on that last week. I maintain that the freedom of speech means the freedom of compulsion of speech or prohibition of speech by the government. You don't go to jail for saying unpopular things. It doesn't 100% guarantee you to escape consequences. And
Yeah, I thought it was. I re-listen. I don't normally listen to podcasts. I mean, sometimes I do, but I did this week, and I just found it timely because you kind of went on and talked about, like, hey, just because you've got the freedom to say something doesn't mean there's not consequences, and that could be a company and whatever. And then, this whole Jimmy Kimmel thing, which I'm sure we'll delve into, but I did think it was timely that you talked about that. And, obviously this company, I don't think he's done, but they've suspended him. And I don't know, I saw today that Iger and some of the top folks are like, they want to bring him back, but they want him to dial back the temperature. But I don't know. I don't like Jimmy Kimmel. I'm not sad that he's off the air, but I didn't watch him anyways. I don't care what the guy says. And honestly, I mean, the little I think of him, I kind of figured what he would say about this situation would have been much worse. So when I heard his quote, I was kind of like, okay. I mean, I expected something more egregious from him, anyways, because I think he's, you know, I don't regard him highly to begin with, but I think it's absurd. But it's I love to dig into it with you because, like, like Ted Cruz said, I sent you that article about Ted Cruz. I'm with Ted. Like, that FCC guy sounds like he's in the mafia, saying, "Oh, well, we could do this the easy way or the hard way." Like, what?
Yeah.
But then the other piece of me is like, where are the guts of this employer? Because, like, I mean, the minute, oh, we're a little scared, we're going to back the bus over our star nighttime performer. It's like there's no courage from the company either, because honestly, I mean, like, okay, this guy runs his mouth off at the FCC. Yeah, I'd like to see the legal basis for all this, but it's like there's a knee jerk from the company too.
Yeah. Well, okay. So a couple things. I do think that the company has the right to fire the guy if it's not good business.
Sure.
And, where that would usually play out is if you say something stupid and people don't like it and your ratings tank, you get fired. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. The free speech problem with Jimmy Kimmel is not the company firing. The free speech problem with Jimmy Kimmel was the pressure put on him by the FCC. That was blatantly illegal in my mind. That's exactly what the First Amendment is designed to prevent. Again, two individuals on their own behalf, somebody might not like what you see, like whatever. It's the government's action in this that I thought was outrageous. So I want to pick apart a couple things that you said. I've got a couple responses. The cowardice of the company. That's a valid point, except this was a business decision for them. If they had litigated this and gone to court, they would have won. But you know what they would have done in the process of winning is spend a lot of money.
Sure. But they're a journal, but at the heart of the network is journalism, supposedly, right? So, like, I mean, obviously Jimmy's not a journalist, but
yeah, he's not a journalist. I would hope that they would have defended. Honestly, in that sense, I'm more disappointed by some of the other media outlets that have rolled. I mean, this is I mean, if I'm going to gripe about something, it's this pattern. It's not just the FCC guy. Trump does this all the time. And he sends these memos out or these tweets out or whatever fake thing that he uses, that so-and-so needs to be fired. And that's what happened. The FCC guy read the tweet or whatever and was like, oh, the boss wants to, I thought it was interesting. It was just the same week, right? That the $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times was laughed out of court by a judge. And the thing is that the New York Times wasn't going to back down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the Wall Street Journal didn't back down.
And I think in some of those lawsuits, it's like anything. I mean, some have merit and some don't. But they're just firing off lawsuits one after the other. And then, I don't see the value in that. I don't know if what this FCC Yahoo said on a podcast is illegal, but it's stupid. And I think here's my thing. I feel like some in the right that are doing this stuff, it's like I just want to shake some of these people because it's like you're overplaying your hand. Like, yeah. I mean, if somebody said something, like if Jimmy Kimmel said, oh, he deserved to die, there wouldn't be anybody defending the guy. Like if somebody said something reprehensible, there's going to be consequences with that. Sure. But I feel like when you overplay against something like this, you kind of denigrate the impact of the actually more egregious statement. I mean, if everything is like, oh, they can't say anything, like, not every statement is the same. And, so I think it kind of lessens the egregiousness of some of what really is ugly. But just because you can rattle the saber, I think is a horrible precedence because, and Ted Cruz alluded to it too. I mean, okay, shoe goes on the other foot. President AOC and Fox News gets revoked because, they've got a conservative viewpoint. I mean, be very careful what the hell you wish for.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'll tell you where I really kind of lost it this week. I'm no paragon of virtue, and I think I was on the right side of history of this one. The minute it happened and I heard about it, my post on Facebook was political violence of any kind is unacceptable, right? Like I think I'm in the right on that. But it was chilling and scary to me to hear what J.D. Vance said in terms of that kind of overplay in the hand and, well, if anybody's disrespectful, I don't want to quote him directly, but, and then he went on to say, call them out on it. That's fair. And then call their employer. And I thought, man, that just feels like East Germany to me. What the hell?
Well, I mean, I guess the flip side to that is there's a lot of, I don't know who, but I don't have a quote for you, but like, the flip side, of people protesting and, hey, go harass people at a restaurant and go, I'm with you. I don't think it's a productive use of time. But I get also, I mean, JD Vance, there's probably a little more to that emotion too, based on, his friendship with I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm just saying, like, just don't know what all this gets you other than what's crazy to me is it's like, and I don't know if you said this, maybe another friend of mine said, no, I think you said this, like, I want the next administration to move a little bit to the right. Then I want the next one to move a little bit to the left. Like, I don't want to move mountains each time. But what's going to happen is they're going to overplay the card over and over and over again. AOC is going to be our next president. And the pendulum is going to go 180 degrees to the left. And then everybody's going to get pissed at her. And it's going to go, even further. I almost wonder, like, are we in an area where the pendulum is going to just be zinging at light speed in between two polar opposites every election?
Well, what it requires to push back for you're right. That's exactly my fear. I've said this over and over again as we've talked about this, especially as regards the consolidation of presidential power under Trump. I hate it because I hate Trump, but I hate it because it scares the hell out of me to pack that kind of power in a unitary executive because I don't trust my side with the keys to the Ferrari any more than I trust your side. And our dad used to say, and I gotta say, I think he was spot on with this. Gridlock is not a bad thing. It
Right.
really isn't. Like there's inertia in our government. You can spin this the way you want. You can talk about the swamp and all of this, the deep state, or you can say we have strong, solid institutions that are designed to be responsive to the will of the people in the form of presidential elections. But there's a little bit of gravity behind it, and it doesn't move overnight. When it does flip overnight, the whiplash is bad for all of us. I don't trust politicians in general with
Yeah.
that kind of with that kind of ability to move the needle. I just don't think it's good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but those people will be like, well, we have a broken government that can't get anything done. It ain't broken. That's how they designed it. They designed it to make it really hard to pass a bill. I mean, like, try amending the Constitution. That is a
Yeah.
super hard thing to do, and on purpose, and it's good.
I don't want this to sound like I'm clapping back at you, but when we began down this, if you roll the clock back a year or more ago when we were first started this before the election, one of the things that you talked a lot about being attractive about Trump was the kind of blow up the not in an explosive, violent sort
Yes,
of way,
right.
in
Yeah,
a
yeah.
figurative sort of way. You're going to hear a lot of disclaimers from me these days. But I mean, I think that's something that you vocalized that you wanted. And I don't want to pin you down, but am I saying that a little bit of inertia in government isn't as bad as you feared?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I kind of want it both ways. I want you to blow it down, but I want you to do the crap I want you to do. I didn't
Right,
like,
right,
and I'll go back to the budget thing. Like, I
right.
loved the ideals of Doge, and let's turn this $7 trillion budget into a $5 trillion budget and erase the deficit. I loved that, and that was a pipe dream, and it was never going to happen because you give somebody the keys to the Ferrari, and they're going to drive 150 miles an hour. Like you
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
that's the disappointing thing, and it's just like I don't know, watching this FCC idiot. It's just like a slow motion train wreck in action. Like you don't know how stupid you are. Like you're burning through this political capital and you're just going to piss it away. And you're going to piss
right.
all these people off and they're going to ram it down your throat. It's kind of I don't know, you'd get a lot more sympathy if you just if you just turn the other cheek and you let all these jerks run their mouth. And Jimmy, hey, you know, let him run his mouth. Those people are going to piss people off. And what you've done now is you've taken a guy like, if you would have just let that idiot, as in the Kimmel idiot, not the FCC idiot, but you got to clarify the idiots here. But if you let Kimmel run his mouth and you never said anything in response to it, who knows? He might have caused this himself.
Well, I think I think you raised a really good point about the FCC guy. This is going to sound stupid when I describe what I was thinking, but I had about a 3-week period in 2016 where I will admit that I was surprised that Trump beat Clinton, and then you look at it a little deeper and not that surprised, right? And then I thought, this guy gets manipulation of the media. He gets, I've said before, he's charismatic in a lowercase c, like I can't stand him kind of way. But I mean, he knows what he's doing, right? And I thought, if this guy had wanted to be the next Lincoln or Roosevelt for a really divided country, he's not bound by a conscience that's particularly anchored to a specific set of moral principles. He could have said, and now is the time to bring the country back together. Everybody's with him. He could have brought the whole country along. And I thought maybe that's what he would do. That would be the TV, like that would be the like that would have been a genius move. And I think he could have done it. I think he has, if he chose to do it, he could have done that. But you realized literally within days that he's not capable of operating without an enemy to bounce shit off of.
Well, to me, it kind of highlights the genius. Whether you're a Christian or not, if you study Jesus's ministry, it really kind of highlights the genius of his approach. Like there is strength through weakness. The the
Yeah.
the the value of vulnerability and not overplaying your cards. Being you're riding into town on a donkey. Uh, that was how Jesus approached it, and his impact was exponentially more powerful. You can force anything through, but it's
Yeah.
not going to have the same impact. And yeah, you make good point. Like I like the fact that there was a forcefulness and a fighting spirit, because my frustration has been maybe not so much the fighting spirit, but like they never get anything accomplished. So I thought, okay, here's a guy who's going to fight and he's going to get something
Hmm.
accomplished. But what you got is a lot of bluster and not a lot of action. And I just think, yeah, to your point, walking more softly and carrying a big step is, I can't speak now, but you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, I do. and again, I'm trying to devolve into Trump, but like there's like a Greek tragedy thing there. Think about this, and you know, you'll find a lot of liberals, you find a lot of moderate Democrats, a lot of far liberals, but a lot of people that would say, even if they kind of groaned saying it, that Operation Warp Speed was pretty incredible, right? Like even begrudgingly, you're like, well, yeah. I mean, that was pretty amazing, and yet because there's people that like are anti-vaxxers, like now he's like distancing himself from it. Like that would have been like a crowning achievement. He should have taken credit for that, but has largely not because it's unpopular with the anti-vax crew. It's
Well, but I mean, I contend again that it's like all this stuff that, like, what side of the political aisle you're on an issue has nothing to do with the issue. It's all got to do with the guy in charge. Because if Trump had won the next term and they started implementing the vaccine, every Democrat would have been an anti-vaxxer. Well, this is the Trump vaccine. We don't want the Trump vaccine. Well, but because Biden was pushing it, all the Republicans hate it. It's like, it's just nonsense, you know?
well, there's certainly some truth to that. I just like it's just like baffling to me. Like, why doesn't he? I would have bragged about that. That's the kind of thing that if you wanted to unite the country, he's had some real opportunities. I literally think that he doesn't know how to function if he doesn't have a foil to bounce something off of. When he gets to ranting, a lot of times he still talks about, how he beat Obama in the election.
Well, I mean, he's an old man. I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, why are we hiring 80-year-olds to do this job? I mean, nothing against 80-year-olds. 80-year-olds are wonderful, but
Well, AOC is about my son's age, and so you're going to have an opportunity to vote for somebody younger this next go around.
yeah. Well, and then, you know, I want to, when she's president, I want to call up this FCC guy and say, you did this, Wasn't there
Yeah.
a the Biden sticker that went around that was viral? I did that. I did that. I did that. This sticker. And when you get that FCC guy, I did that and pointed at AOC.
You might want to set a chair for the FCC guy next to FBI Director Patel.
Okay. I loved the theater of watching him go off on because you know what? So that's another thing. And it's not related to a free speech topic, but these Senate hearings, I mean, what the hell is the point of these things? It's such nonsense. I mean, they're asking the right or the left, they're asking questions. They don't want to know the answer to the question. They don't want an answer. It's like a lecture theater. So I actually enjoyed watching Cash give it back to some of these yahoos.
Have you read the Epstein files? Have you looked at the files that are on the desk? That doesn't sound theatrical to me. That sounds like a kind of a legitimate question.
Well, I'm just saying, there was a lot. I don't know if I watched a lot of the interchange back and forth, and it's
Oh,
just all
yeah.
these gotcha moments back and forth, and nobody's.
Oh, totally. And it's funny. You don't see this, but look for a wide angle camera on those rooms when that's going on. Because the way it works is the senator who's got their time is sitting in their chair and they're, pinning him to the wall and calling him a bad hunting dog. And meanwhile, every other chair is empty because the other ones are out there having lunch or a smoke or whatever.
It's funny because I worked for a guy for a little while in my last company who was a retired 4-star general. You met him.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been the vice commandant of the Marine Corps. Great guy, a really good dude. And but he was telling, we were eating dinner one night on a trip somewhere, and he was telling me about testifying before Congress, which I'm like, we're eating at like Chili's, and he's telling me about the war story about testifying before the Senate, and I'm thinking, well, that's interesting, but he said it's so unsettling because you're there, you've done all this prep, and you're talking and you look around the room and nobody's paying attention to a damn word anybody's saying. I mean, they're all like, everybody's shuffling around, staffers are walking around. They don't care what the hell you're talking about, you know? And then it's turned into these sound bites. It's all like on YouTube shorts and Facebook shorts and all this stuff. And it's like, I almost feel like they shouldn't televise that crap. Like, if you want to have a hearing, don't televise. Like, neither side ought to be grandstanding. Like, what's the point of that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty unseemly. But YouTube's algorithm has figured out that I really like watching 30-second clips of Hakeem Jeffries or Cory Booker going
The
after
Cory Booker
somebody.
interchange was good, or when he told Adam Schiff he was a buffoon. I thought that was pretty good. So it's fun to watch. But it's funny, but you bring up a good point, because I'm sure on your feed, it's like Adam Schiff sticks to Kash Patel. I'm reading my feed and it's like Kash Patel sticks it to Adam Schiff. Like, it's the same conversation, but it's spin either way, depending on your feed, you know?
So this would be a fun thought experiment. Let's exchange YouTube logins for a week.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, now in full disclosure, you would get what my kids get worn out with. It's a lot of airplanes. So there's that. So it may not be that.
And you'd be all sailboats and
Yeah.
the British woman who cooks potatoes. And yeah, that would actually be a nice, fun, light episode when we're sick of the death match.
Well, I mean, I texted you, like, I don't think this is going to be that good of a podcast. We're not probably going to disagree that much. I mean, the main topic, I think I'm in violent agreement with you. There's probably different parameters we may differ on, but I mean,
Yeah.
but what is fascinating is, like, the reason I don't like it. Well, I mean, I think we both objectively view freedom of speech as a critical element, but I feel like the part that pisses me off the most about it is they are just equipping the other side. Now, I think that's a different, you know, there's a different core anger that you have, but I mean, and I'm not saying that, like, infringing on free speech alone isn't bad enough, but I just feel like I feel like it's friendly fire. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, do we need this? I mean, come on.
Well, look, my outrage does tend to be more of the, kind of on principle, but I can completely relate to what you're saying, because I think about this a lot, and I talk about this with my left side friends. I have a hard time getting past some of the self-inflicted wounds on the Democrat Party's part, right? And go back to 2016 and the really botched attempt to stifle Bernie Sanders in pursuit of the coronation of Hillary Clinton. Well, how'd that work out for us?
Yeah.
I mean, counterfactual is easy to argue, but given the way that Bernie Sanders speaks to some of the same outrage that propelled Trump to the White House, if the debate had been Sanders versus Trump, I think it's much more of a coin flip. And yet Hillary Clinton embodied the institutionalist things that drive people nuts. And that was just a colossal miss. Obviously, the how we wound up with Joe Biden running for a second term. I don't see any. That has to have contributed more to Trump's victory than any other thing. I'm not saying that he doesn't touch a nerve or couldn't. That Joe Biden was the person running for president up until the summer.
Yeah. But I mean, the reason he won, again, it's back to my pendulum theory. I mean, Biden won. Biden would have never won probably the first time if there was not a legitimate, but if there was, like, a candidate on the right that didn't piss everybody off. I mean, most of the people, I mean, I don't know I can't quote it, but I would have bet that a big percentage of the people that voted for Joe Biden when he won were not, like, Joe Biden fans. They want anybody but Trump. And there were all kinds of signs, like, anybody but Trump,
There's and so that's a population. There's another interesting population. If you look at counties that went in three consecutive elections, Trump, Biden, Trump.
Yeah.
That's an interesting phenomenon too.
I was thinking, and I researched a little bit, but I feel like some of this overplaying, what it reminds me of, I don't know if you remember November 2004, George W. Bush says, I earned political capital in the campaign and now I intend to spend it. And then that was kind of like the beginning of the end of his popularity in his presidency, because then he started doing all this crap and it pissed everybody off. And I feel like that's where we're at. Like, people think that they have capital that they can spend, and like that tank goes empty quick and it doesn't fill back up.
Yeah. Well, I've thought this a lot, and again, we could differ, and you could find as wide a spectrum if you look over Trump voters as you would, but I would argue that there's a pretty sizable chunk that weren't voting for Trump. They were voting against Harris, against the
Yeah.
perception of the Democrats that they were feckless and incompetent. And, if you vote for somebody because they're the least bad option, that does not really constitute a mandate.
Yeah. Well,
You
I
know,
mean, this sounds anti-American, I suppose, but we talk about voter ID law, and I know this goes back into the whole racism and everything else. I'm not trying to advocate for undefensible positions, but I wish there would be some type of way to make sure people actually knew what the hell they were voting for. I mean, it's just turned into like either a popularity contest or, it's like a roulette wheel. I mean, what percentage of the population that votes actually is voting for something other than just and
a
it would be
feeling.
an impossible thing to regulate. I'm not suggesting it should be, but
It's interesting. I agree with you. I agree with you that I wish there was something like that. I agree with you that it's untenable. And it's one of those things that got, completely poisoned by its utilization after Reconstruction as a tool to oppress black people.
yeah, totally.
But the idea of, is there a way? It's interesting. I've known smart and thoughtful people on both sides who have kind of longed for more civic literacy in a way. And, a poll test is probably not going to get a lot of signers. But, are there other ways other than a barrier to entry? How are we doing with teaching civics in school? I don't know. It's been a long time since I was in school, and I know that we can hardly teach kids to read and write and do math. So, maybe that's not on the top of the priority list, but my gosh, it should be. Are there other ways to, well, and okay, so if we're confessing shortcomings of our side, this is going way off on a tangent, but I want to get back to what you said about kind of civic education. One of my frustrations with the left, honestly, the the off the railsness of cancel culture that reached a peak a few years ago. Look, if somebody was genuinely a sexual abuser, I have no sympathy. To hell with them. Harvey Weinstein, rot in jail. I don't care. But there have been instances when mere accusation, unfounded, have been enough to derail careers. That's just as abhorrent to me as kind of what I'm seeing on the right now. One of the things that I think was a real mistake in that process, a baby out with the bathwater, the politicization of our history. And look, our history is complicated, and we shouldn't gloss over it. But on its worst day, on its worst days, the United States of America, on its worst days, like at Antietam, with hundreds of thousands of people dying for the worst cause in history, right? On our worst day, the contribution of the United States of America virtually inventing the idea of large scale representative democracy, it's important and it matters and it's something to be proud of. And I think that's not incompatible with saying that we've also done some really stupid and horrible things that we got to reckon with. And So I guess this is kind of like a mini rant, but this is a place where the left, I think, is really, I think, talk about squander advantage. I'm all for looking full in the eye the shortcomings of our society, the mistakes that we've made, and slavery being the most obvious, but not the only of those kind of inherent problems that we've had, the mistakes that we've made. But on our worst day, we're still a beacon to the world that has sparked a change that has reverberated around the world. And to not be able to talk about that with pride and hope is sad.
Yeah. Well, and it's, I don't know. Yeah, you hope that there's like a balanced thing. Like I want a kind of when I talked about vulnerability, I'd like a vulnerable view of our country when it's expressed in history. Like to your point, like we've got this ideal that we've been pushing, but from the start it was flawed because we're all humans and we're all flawed and there's issues with it and it doesn't work and it even doesn't work today. But like there's a reason why everybody wants to come here. People
Mm-hmm.
aren't dying to get to Belgium. They're dying to get here. Why is that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Technically, there are people dying to get across the Mediterranean to immigrate from Africa to Europe. But no,
yeah,
you're 100% right. And those aren't incompatible statements to say that we've done horrible and dumb things and that we've still got problems that we need to reckon with. But yet still,
well, and again, that back to that's what I find objectionable about this shut down, cancel culture on either side, and the Republicans are the right is going to screw it up if they go too far to the right, too far to cancel on their own. Like, what makes America great again, or what makes America great of any
that we never
time
lost.
is like it is a country that you can actually, hey, we've done bad things, we've messed up. If you're North Korea, you can't say, well, the government of Kim Il Sung, they've done some good things, but they've really screwed up some things. That didn't go over too well.
No, well, I mean, look at Putin and Russia and
Yeah,
China. The inability of China to countenance its mistakes means that you're constantly doubling down on your worst actions ever.
right.
You know, like, no, we're not going to turn loose of Taiwan. We're going to go get it eventually. Like, what? Really? Like, why?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think part of it too is just I don't know what I hope for in our leadership is that they are introspective enough to look inward and be like, hey, I got this right. I didn't get this right. But honestly, I don't know of a leader that we've had. I don't know what national leader we've had that has been able to be that vulnerable. I mean, I don't care who has been president. Like nobody's been particularly like, well, these are some of my shortcomings. You're like, nope.
No, but wouldn't you say? I mean, here's old guy nostalgia for the past. I felt like both George W. Bush and Obama came a lot closer to that than what we've had in Trump and Biden.
I disagree. I remember a press conference in general with George W. and they're like, "Do you have any regrets?" Nope. Okay,
Yeah,
I mean, and Obama's the same
no,
way.
you're
Now,
right.
I think probably if you had a dialogue with either one of them, they strike me as the kind of people that might acknowledge some failures of things, but
I,
but
I think
they're not going to say
W,
that because you're so like you got to be on all the time with all the
yeah. I think maybe part of my opinion is colored. A lot of things I've heard W say after the White House, it seems like he's been a lot more thoughtful
yeah.
about that stuff. And that I don't know. I've never heard him say that there weren't mass weapons of destruction and we shouldn't have invaded a different country, Iraq. But I
Well, and part of me just likes to see like him getting along with Obama and Clinton, and I don't know. There's part of me that wants to think that they all have some level of respect for each other, and I don't know why that's important to me, but I did laugh. I don't know if you heard the quote from George W. after the first Trump inauguration. He gets done speaking, and George W. walks over to the Clintons and the Obamas and his dad and everybody. He's like, "Well, that's some weird shit."
I feel like Pete Hegseth is dying to have some kind of a, not a big war, but some kind of war that he can be in charge of. I think he just is itching for that.
Hmm. I don't know. I haven't gotten that sense, but um,
They changed the name of the department.
well, I honestly think to some degree you could make the case that um, that might reduce your international involvement. If the sole purpose is to wage a war, that's a different mission than, defending and peacekeeping. So, I mean, I,
And can
I
we
can
get it that
actually
at a
see
cheaper
some.
price?
I guess my point is just, and I don't know if this is their strategic viewpoint, but I kind of view, I mean, I would say that's one thing I liked about the Cheney doctrine. It's like we shouldn't be involved unless there is a bona fide national interest, and then we ought to blow the living daylights out of somebody, and it ought to be a war. Like half-ass defense shouldn't be a thing. And I don't know that they're going to go down that
Yeah.
path, but I like that concept of high lethality only used when you really got to go to battle.
Yeah.
I can see that.
I could get behind that. That makes sense to me. I think though that it ultimately becomes pretty darn expensive because I mean, we've utilized the military in a lot of non-military roles through the years, and you either got to not do that or you got to come up with something else. You've got to come up with a hybrid that's the United States peacekeeping people or something like that. You know what I mean? Like separate actual warring from kind of the hybridized disaster relief, you know what I mean? Like, and I think those things are valuable, but I could see saying, no, that's a different job than the military.
Well,
But then you
honestly,
got to create something for that.
I don't know if you read about the proposal for a demilitarized zone in Ukraine, but staffed with contractors. I thought that was a pretty interesting approach.
Yeah, especially if you're, what's that, Eric Prince guy? Yeah, that's a great idea. There's billions to be made on that deal.
Well, I'm just saying, like, that we need our
Yeah,
lethal warriors focused on, making sure doing
right.
a security job.
Well, okay, so let me approach it from the liberal standpoint. Like, honestly, as you're saying this makes more sense to me. I could get behind that. But I would want to augment with the peace force or something. You know what I mean?
Or
Like
you have the contractor there, and then you lay down, and it's kind of my point of the way I wish the administration would deal with Putin, and they haven't, and I'm not happy about it. But what I wish they'd do is, hey, we're going to put a contractor there, and you know what? If one of those guys gets injured, a B-52 is going to come in and bomb the living shit out of all your forces. There ought
yeah,
to be like the backup plan is, yeah, you're going to get your ass kicked if you mess with our peacekeeper.
yeah, empower our our peacekeepers are backed by limitless force. Honestly, I'd circle that back to what you said about I'm going to bring Jesus into the military now. But really, that idea of and I didn't say as you said that I was nodding in agreement, but I got sidetracked with that. I completely agree with you that power through strength of like, no, I don't have to. I'm not going to get into the down into the fight with you. I'm just above it, and I can't be baited. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that is so powerful. And it's honestly part of the thing about Trump. Well, it's a long list of things that drive me nuts, but the petulance and the fragility, he is so easy for people to flatter and he is so easy for people to irritate. And I think it's his weakness.
Well, I think more. I think it's a useful tool. More to your point of you know manipulation of the media to get his point across. I'm going to feign I'm offended and then get everybody talking about that. I think a lot of what he does is trying to manipulate the message to create media stir. I don't necessarily think all that's good for the presidency, but I I think he's a media manipulator.
Plays the
That's
game.
his. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say, the
I mean, I got
CEOs
him
sitting
there.
around.
You know.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. The video of the CEOs one by one kissing up, you know the one I'm talking about? That was a little cringe.
Which one's that?
I'll find the link. It was like all the big players, and they were seated at the cabinet table, and they literally like went around the room and were like, "You're such a good president, and you've done such great things," like one after the other. It was the most North Korea moment I've ever seen in
Oh, you're
my
talking about the
life.
cabinet meeting.
No, it wasn't. The cabinet does that like regularly. This was he assembled corporate CEOs and had them do the same thing. You know, it was like pass the gavel and everybody say how
But
remarkable he is.
again, it's like this Kimmel thing. It's like, does anybody have a trying to think of a better term than testicle? But I mean, apparently not. I mean, what it always reminds me. There was this guy. I've told this story, but when I was in the military, I was in this staff meeting one time. The wing commander of the base were having this big inspection, and they got all the colonels sitting around the table. And this guy, he's like, "We're having the inspector come in. You, so and so division, services division. What grade are you going to get? We're going to get an outstanding, sir." It goes to the next guy. What are you getting? We're getting an outstanding, sir. And the next guy, the next guy. There was this one guy, older guy, African American gentleman, great dude, and he would always he looked old. I mean, he's probably my age, but at the time, as a kid, he looked like this old man, and he always had a cigar he was chewing on, and he's leaning back in his seat. He's just like leaning back, and all these suck ups are going around the room. Oh, we're going to get an outstanding, sir. We're going to get an outstanding. Colonel Mitchell, what are you going to get? He leans up, satisfactory, and leans back, and then, everybody's like, satisfactory, like, how could you? But, it's basically like a big flip the bird, like, yeah, we're going to pass. We'll be good. And I just always think of that, like, where is the gonads of some of these people to be like, yeah, I think you're kind of a jackass. Like nobody would say that because they're so worried, but it's like you think about the viral moment and how many people you would be following you and worshiping you after that. But it's like people would not, it's like people lack guts to do the right thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think so.
Not even the right thing. Maybe not the right thing. Lack the guts just to, you know, and honestly, that's what I've liked about Trump is he's got the guts to say what he thinks and do something. And it's like, where are the other folks that are ready to jump in? I'm looking for somebody with some intestinal fortitude out there.
So Gavin Newsom baiting Trump, that doesn't probably appeal to you
No,
very
because
much.
he's a goofball. Like, come on, give me somebody that has, I mean,
I think it's too bad because what we're not going to get this next go round is we're not going to get a debate between AOC and Trump. That'd sell tickets right there.
yeah.
Well, it's been good catching up on this, and I do think that hopefully it's not been terrible radio to listen to because I think that we're not far away on this, but I also think that we're probably not far away from the average American.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I don't know. It's a weird time. You see this, you see how hurt people are by the assassination, and I get that. I don't think it's a time to dial back on our values of free speech. I also think it's not the time, just because you can, it's really probably not a great time to just be an ass for being an ass sake. And wouldn't you like it if everybody was a little dignified about something that's a horrible thing, and also that this was a guy who stood up for free speech.
Right. Yeah, totally.
So,
Did you see
well,
the guy that the day after the assassination? I don't know if he'd accept it or not, but Charlie had invited Van Jones was going to be on his program. I thought that was
oh,
interesting.
no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. He Van Jones spoke here on campus a couple of years ago, and I went to the lecture. It was really good. He's
I'll take your
You know,
word
the
for
Green
it.
was a smart guy. What's that?
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. Smart guy. All right. Well, let's wrap. We need to get, I tell you, we do have some Epsteining to talk about before too long. We've got to get
Yeah.
back on that because you know what? This is still a thing. And I'm not just trying to beat a drum that's out there. I'm just bewildered that there's just like flat refusal to do anything about it. It is really shocking.
Well, and I mean, maybe we have a conspiracy episode coming because there's a lot of conspiracies out there about the Kirk murder too.
Yeah, really? Like,
I just saw something that popped up on my feed that he was seen at a fast food restaurant 30 minutes after the assassination. Like, there's all this. I mean, it's like back to JFK. Like, I've heard people call him a patsy. I'm like, okay, I've heard that before.
yeah. I mean, even my temptation to go down conspiratorial pathways. The thing about it is, I want to talk about this not in a disrespectful way about the fact of the guy's assassination and murder and all of that. But if you're a CIA person and you've got a beef with Kennedy as president who might win a second term, there's a legitimate, real thing that guy could do to you as president, and assassinating him made that he could not do that thing to you, right? This was a guy who was entirely just a public discussion figure, right? He didn't have any power. There wasn't a procedural benefit to anybody killing him,
Right.
and everything to lose, like everything to lose. I don't, and that's why. Well, again, people want to look under rocks or whatever, but one of the things, and we didn't talk about this, and I should have, and the things that really bothered me from Trump on down was this, like, well, it's this vast liberal conspiracy to kill the guy. Listen, I get the mail from the liberal conspiracy office. I get the emails and the texts from the Department of Liberal Conspiracies, and nobody would have ever, like, that just, it's almost so dumb that it doesn't offend me. But really, like, there's a conspiracy out there of, I don't know, if it was a liberal plot to kill the guy rather than a disturbed individual, it was a bad plan, because not only was it a horrible thing, it has not benefited any of the causes that any thought they were
Well,
advancing.
I think that's core to these conspiracy theories because my contention, as I said before, it's some asshole with a gun is what happened. But
Yeah,
the conspiracy theory that, it's some orchestrated event, maybe it is. And then that opens a question like, why are they orchestrated? And to your point, like, what's the motive and everything else and what's in it? And unfortunately, we're in a country where there's a lot of assholes and a lot of
yeah,
them have guns, unfortunately.
yeah. No, it's hard for me to see. What's the Latin expression, cui bono, CUIBON, who benefits? If this was some kind of liberal Antifa conspiracy, man, I wish I'd have been there on that planning day to say, not a
This isn't
plan,
going to go well,
not
right?
the
And
way, like,
right.
not doing you what you want. Good grief. In addition to being horrible. So, all right, well, let's wrap it. But it's good to catch up.
Yeah, sounds good, Ken.
Hey, thanks for joining us on this episode of Bourbon and Rum Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us keep the good spirits flowing.
And we invite you to join this conversation. Follow us on our Facebook page. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to hear.
And until next time, cheers.